Hi, I'm Maggie Weldon from maggiescrochet.com, and I'm here today to introduce you to a new series of stitch videos that we're going to do, and to Christina,
hey guys,
who is an avid crocheter, knitter, and she's done a lot of different needle crafts.
I love experimenting. I mean, gosh, I've probably crocheted since I was probably about 8 or 9 years old. I think my grandmother taught me how. So yeah, I mean, I love pretty much any sort of crafting, and I'm always looking forward to learning something new.
So I'm enlisting Christina's help and to get a lot of instructional videos out on YouTube. And if you are looking for any type of help on different stitches, just let us know in the comments. And the different stitches that we're going to show you are like the ripple stitch, and that comes in several variations. There's ripple stitches with single crochets, with waves, and with double crochets stitches. There's all kinds of variations. Some have lace worked into them. And then there's the popular basket weave stitch, and that comes in several different variations. And then there's just regular like V-stitch or a netting stitch or a little seed stitch, which is like a single crochet chain one, and then you go back and single crochet in the chain one space. And then there's the more complicated stitches like the Solomon's knot it's called, or lover's knot this one's called. And what else is there?
Oh gosh. Cluster stitches, wave stitches, shell stitches.
And there's like broomstick lace. And hairpin lace. There's all kinds of stuff. So maybe we'll split those up too. We'll do the different ones that require like the stuff to go along with them, right, like the hairpin lace loom or whatever, you know. So maybe. So anyway, I want you to subscribe to the channel, and you want to make sure that you don't miss any of these great stitches that we're going to show you. And I look forward to Christina helping us.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be
I've already seen her crocheting, and that's Maggie approved. So thank you for joining us, and be sure to subscribe to the channel.
Hey everybody, it's Christina from Maggie's Crochet, and today I'm going to teach you how to do the crocodile stitch, also known as the scale stitch, because we make all these great little kind of crocodile scales. Now this is an intermediate skill project. It's a little more difficult than a lot of the ones we bring you here as our free patterns, but this one has been requested a lot, so we wanted to do it for you. Before you start this pattern, I would recommend that you have a really good grasp of double crochets and also post stitches. Maggie did some really nice in-depth videos on both of those a while back, so I'll link them down in the description. If I forget, leave me a comment. I'll be sure to put them in. So this sample here is made with worsted weight yarn, which is also what I'll be using today. I'm using a size I9 hook for this. You can make this in any weight of yarn, just use the appropriate hook size, but worsted weight is definitely a good kind of your basic yarn just to go ahead and start with until you get comfortable with the stitch. Now you're going to start by chaining a multiple of 4 plus 5. Now you can think of that as a multiple of 4 plus 1, but you do need at least 9 stitches to start, or else it's just not really going to turn out right. And each multiple of 4 is going to translate into 1 scale on your longer row. Now if I pull this back out again, you'll see that the scales are staggered. So each multiple of 4 is 1 scale on your longer scale row. So this one has 6 scales on the longer one and 5 on the other one. So it was 6 multiples of 4 plus 1. I've got 13 stitches here, so on my longer row I'll have 3 scales, and I'll have 2 scales on the shorter row. So once you decide how large you want your piece to be, you're going to start by double crocheting in the 5th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll just yarn over, insert right into that stitch, and work my double crochet. Now the stitches we skipped are going to count as a double crochet and a chain 1 space. So that's our first V-stitch right there. Then we're going to skip the next chain. So that's the one we worked into. We'll skip the next one, and in the next one we're going to work another V-stitch. So we're going to do a double crochet, chain 1, and then work another double crochet in the same stitch. And it creates kind of a V, which is why it's called the V-stitch. Go figure. And then we're just going to continue doing that all the way across. So I'll skip the next one, V-stitch in the next one, and so on. And I should end up with a V-stitch in the very last chain of the row. Oh, no chain in between V's. V-stitches are one of those stitches that will kind of vary depending on what pattern you're working. They might have a chain in between them, they might not. So anytime you see a pattern that says V-stitch, be sure to check and see if it specifies exactly what it wants you to do for that V-stitch. So this one is just double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet. And that's listed at the top of your pattern. All right, so that's row 1. You have, well, if you chained 13 like I did, you would have 5 V-stitches, including that first one with the skipped chains. Row 2 is where we start to get a little bit tricky. We're going to chain 3, and do not turn. Normally when you're crocheting at the end of a row, you chain 3, turn, work back across. We're not going to do that this time. We're going to continue looking at the same side of the work. Now in this last double crochet of row 1 right here on the end, we're going to work 3 double crochets over this post. So what you'll do is you'll yarn over, and then you're going to take your hook and just go right underneath that double crochet. Don't try to work into the middle of it, just go right underneath it, grab a loop, pull it up. You have 3 loops on your hook, and you'll yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So that's 1 double crochet worked over the post of that double crochet in row 1. So we're going to do 2 more of those. So yarn over, go right underneath that double crochet, finish it like usual, and then 1 more. So including that chain 3, we've got 4 double crochets there. Then you'll chain 2, and we're going to flip the work upside down. So we have been looking at it like this. I'm just going to rotate it 180 degrees like that. So the stitches I just did are facing down. Then you're going to work, get that tail out of the way, you're going to work 4 double crochets around the next double crochet. This is the other side of that V-stitch from row 1. It's right next to the one you just worked on. So I'm going to work 4 double crochets around it too. Yarn over, go right underneath that post, and work your double crochets. 2, 3, and 4 is our last one. So that is 1 scale. You've got 4 double crochets on each side and a chain 2 right at the bottom. That kind of helps it turn around. So once you've done that and you're looking at your work like this, we're going to again rotate the piece 180 degrees. So just flip it upside down again. And then you might want to kind of fold those double crochets you just did, fold them up a little bit so you can see the stitches underneath. We're going to skip this next V-stitch. These 2 double crochets that are worked into the same chain, we're going to skip that. And moving on to the next V-stitch, that's where our next scale is going to be. So around the first double crochet, the top one of that group, again, I'm going to work 4 double crochets. So there's no chains in between this scale and the next one. I'm just going to yarn over, go right underneath that post, and work a double crochet. And that kind of helps that stay flat there. So we want a total of 4, 2, 3, and 4. Then again, you'll chain 2, rotate the piece. So your scales are on the bottom now as you're looking at it like this. And around the next double crochet, the other half of that same V-stitch, we'll do 4 more double crochets. 2, 3, and 4. So then when you turn it the right way, you can see now that we have 2 little scales. And you would just continue to repeat this all the way across your row. Like I said, on this row I have 2 more V-stitches, so we're going to skip this one. I'll work a scale in this one, so we'll have a total of 3 scales on this first row. Now there are a couple different ways to do the crocodile stitch. If this is a little different than maybe another video you've seen, doesn't mean that one of us is wrong. It just means that we have different ways of doing it. I mean, they're all basically the same, but like I said, you know, the way I do the 2 chains at the bottom of each scale, I've seen some patterns that don't do those 2 chains right there. So, you know, there are a couple different variations. But in general, they all come out looking close to the same at least, unless you're looking really close. All right, so that's my last scale of that row. I got three scales. For row 3, we're going to chain 3. And notice now we're on this side of the work, so we don't need to turn because we're already on the correct side. So we just kind of worked across the front of the other row to get back on the correct side. Now working into row 1, which was our V-stitch row, we're going to V-stitch in the middle of each chain 1 space. So basically for this first one, since we worked our double crochets around the post of the V-stitch, the chain 1 space is right there in the middle. So I'm just going to yarn over, go right to the middle of that scale, work a double crochet, chain 1, yarn over, work another double crochet in the same spot. So again, I'll just go right into the middle of that scale and double crochet just like that. Then the next chain 1 space is kind of in between these 2 scales. If you flip it over or kind of pull that to the side, you can see there's that V-stitch. And I'm going to work another V-stitch right in the center there. So I'll just yarn over, go right under that chain, and work the V-stitch. Then the next one would be in the middle of the scale. And you'll just repeat this all the way across until you reach the end. So now I've got another one here in between the scales. So for this crocodile stitch, you kind of have your foundation rows, which are your V-stitch rows, and then your scale rows, which are the ones that will be visible. So I'm in my last scale working a V-stitch here. Alright, so there's my last V-stitch of this row, and then I want to end with a double crochet in the top of this chain 3 here from that first scale. So I'll just yarn over, count up 1, 2, 3, and double crochet right there. So you should have your V-stitches in the middle and 1 double crochet on each side. This is one of those patterns that's going to look a little wonky the first couple of rows, but as you continue crocheting and it gets a little more substance to it, it'll kind of straighten itself out size-wise. So for row 4, that's what we're on now, you are going to turn. We're going to work briefly on the back side, slip stitch in the next double crochet, so that's this one here, that's part of our V-stitch. Skip the chain 1 space, slip stitch in the next 2 double crochets. So that's that one there, and then this one. And this is because our next row of scales is offset. We don't want to start all the way on the end, so we got to kind of work our way into the middle. So then chain 3, and at this point I'm going to kind of turn back to the front of my work so I can see the front here. And we're going to again work 3 double crochets over the post of this V-stitch. So in case you're not sure which one that is, just take a look at your scales, and it should be the V-stitch that's kind of in between 2 scales. So just like you did on the previous row, you'll work 3 double crochets on this side, chain 2, rotate the work 180 degrees. So what you just did is facing the ground, and then work 4 double crochets around the opposite post. That's 3, so 1 more. There you go. And then when you take a look at it, you see how that scale kind of covers the gap in between the 2 from the previous row. So then we'll do the same thing all the rest of the way across. We'll skip the next V-stitch, work around the following one. Now I do want to point something out once I finish the scale. I wasn't paying attention on the first row, and I think I turned my work the wrong way when I rotated it. Does it really matter which way you turn your work? It's best to be consistent, and I will show you why. So look at, I haven't finished the second scale yet, but if you look at the way they're joined there, that's nice, that flows, you know, they kind of continue going. If you look at the ones on the first row, see how they're kind of twisted? It's because I rotated my work the wrong way. If you look in the pattern, you'll see it says to rotate it anti-clockwise. So make sure that you rotate it anti-clockwise to get this look. Unless you like the twisted look, in which case that would be rotating it clockwise. Like I said, the biggest thing is to try to be consistent throughout the piece. So once I finish this scale, this row is only going to have 2 scales because we're offset from the first one. 3 and 4 is my final one. So there we go. Those kind of nicely overlap our first row scales. And then you'll skip the last V-stitch here, and you just want to do a little single crochet in the top of the last double crochet, and that just kind of tacks this end down. There you go. Row 5 is going to be another foundation row, another V-stitch row, so you'll just work all the way across with your V-stitches. And then row 6 is very much like row 2. It's a little different because you're not working into the very first row, but it again is going to end up with, well, in my case it would end up with 3 scales. It's going to end up with whatever your larger row of scales is. And then you'll just repeat rows 3 through 6 until your piece reaches your desired size. I do recommend ending with the larger scale row, because otherwise you kind of have these funky ends where there's nothing. If you finish with a larger scale row, then that end will just look a little more finished. You may want to do a final row of single crochets across the top to kind of finish off this edge. That's totally up to you, kind of depends on what you're going to use it for, if this is getting sewn into anything, or if you're just going to use it as is. Well guys, I hope this video has been helpful to you. Like I said, I know this is one of the more difficult stitches that we've done here for you, but hopefully this gives you a little bit better idea of the crocodile stitch. This is a really nice sample we have here. I did not make this one. But you can see here at the top how they finished it with single crochets, just to kind of give it a nice finished edge. If you have questions about this project, you can certainly ask them down in the comments. I'll do my best to help you out. And down in the description, you will find the links to everything you need for this project. Thanks for watching, guys.
So I'm going from this side to that side, and I'm going to pick up my yarn and draw that up and then finish my double crochet like. So if you do, let's say I've seen scarves made with only pulling 5 loops through, and they look amazing. They're really cute. They come out